Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have full review of the Motorola Moto G54 5G. Let's get started. Like all Motorola G family devices, this one is part of the mid-range. In fact, Motorola has very common devices with each other with a few differences. So I invite you to also go check out the reviews of devices like the Moto G84 and some others in the G series that are very similar. This time, Motorola has decided to launch two versions of this device in Mexico. One with 128 and the other with 256 gigabytes of storage. This strategy has also been replicated in other parts of the world. The price of the most basic unit in Mexico is 4,999 Mexican pesos. That's about $290 approximately, although remember that prices here are not the same as there. The version with double the storage is priced at 5,499 pesos. That is about $320, and I sincerely believe that the price is considerably attractive taking into account several features that we will find in it. In addition, in Mexico and other countries it includes the Moto Buds 13S, a totally wireless headset that complements the experience very well. So consider that the box does include a charger and wireless headphones, so it has very good arguments against its competitors. But join me in getting to know it point by point. The design will be very traditional like all Motorola devices. It has considerably reduced bezels, although the bottom bezel is a little thicker, but its use of the front I think is considerably high. It should also be noted that the front is protected with Panda Glass. A protection that may not be as popular as Gorilla Glass, but at least it is appreciated that they do include a special protection and not just leave it as glass. On the right side there is a power button that is also a fingerprint reader and volume buttons. Above a microphone and the text that says Dolby Atmos. On the left side is placed a tray where you can put a micro SD card as well as a nano SIM card. On the bottom we find headphone jack, a microphone, a regulatory symbol which is quite strange, and we also have the USB-C port and the main speaker. The material used on the sides is plastic, although it has a metallic aesthetic and has a thickness of 7.99 millimeters and a weight of 174 grams. So the truth is that it is very comfortable to hold in the hand despite not having a curved finish on the back cover. In this back cover we are going to find two different finishes depending on the color you have chosen. In this case I have the mint green color, and so it comes with a synthetic leather finish that is slightly soft to the touch, although not as soft as other more advanced synthetic leather used by Motorola in the Edge series. So despite being synthetic leather it also feels of a different quality. But it is still very much appreciated because the feel is soft. This finish also comes in the color edition called Indigo Blue. But there are other editions that arrive with a glass look plastic on the back cover, so this may come to vary. In fact, it is very curious because Motorola has launched in India a different version with the same name that has a bigger battery, but therefore it is also heavier and thicker. It seems that in Mexico and the rest of the world they decided to give priority to a thin and light design and not so much to the battery. Finally, with respect to resistance, this device simply integrates a waterproof design, which means that any splash of water will run off more easily to prevent damage to the device, but remember that it is not submersible. The screen is 6.5 inches, so we could say that it is categorized within the small screen, so to speak, although it definitely does give us a very good viewing space. We have full HD plus resolution 1080 by 2400 pixels to be exact, which gives us a good density of 405 pixels per inch. And that means that the texts and images that you see through this screen are going to look pretty sharp. Plus, it is an IPS screen. That means that from the front you will have a good display with considerably saturated colors, although the contrast is not that high, and also consider that when you rotate the screen and see the content from a different angle, you will notice that the brightness drops considerably. Then it is not an exaggeratedly attractive screen, but I think in this price range is within what one might expect. In fact, it is very curious that YouTube, if you detect the screen as an HDR screen, so it is strange to say that front if you're going to have a very good display, although from the sides this is lost considerably. Motorola does not officially share information regarding the brightness of your screen, but I think it is an adequate brightness. Just outdoors maybe you will suffer a little more to see the content well, but I think it is again within what one would expect in a device of this price. On the other hand, the minimum brightness does not come down either exaggeratedly, unlike more advanced devices, but again is what one would expect at this price level. The good news is that this screen has a refresh rate of 120 Hz. It means that it is going to give us very smooth and fluid movements, not only in the system animations, but also when scrolling in some lists and similar effects. So the experience of the screen seems positive to me. This refresh rate is able to be adjusted automatically, or you can also set it manually at 60 or 120 Hz. And we will also find some color calibration options in case you want colors a little more natural or more saturated. Sincerely, in the saturated setting is where I have found a better quality in colors. This device, like many others from Motorola, does integrate stereo sound, so we have the main speaker at the bottom and a secondary speaker in the earpiece area for calls, as it does not have a grill on the frame. Then through this system we have a strong sound and with good definition, although it is not an asymmetrical sound because it has more presence of low frequencies, so the upper speaker is left with a little less power in those frequencies. But we could say that the experience is excellent and it does earn Dolby Atmos certification. The lower speaker is the one with more presence of low frequencies, so the upper speaker is left with a little less power in those frequencies, but we could say that the experience is excellent and it does earn the Dolby Atmos certification that is indicated here. Let's listen to a small test, although it is not the same to listen to it live. At this price level, you are unlikely to find any device better than what we find in this Motorola, as it also comes with good options added by Dolby Atmos. Then we find some surround sound presets, and if you select the custom setting, you will notice that we can edit in a 10-band equalizer, our music experience, and best of all is that these controls are enabled even when you do not have headphones connected, unlike the vast majority of devices on the market today, so they offer very good customization options through the sound software. I had already told you, but I stress if you have headphone jack, but if you want to use wireless headphones, you should know that if you have good codecs like aptX and LDHC version 3 and version 4 in addition to the codec to do, then if you have headphones compatible with these codecs advanced sound, if you will be able to enjoy a good resolution audio even with wireless headphones. We are now going to listen to the sound test captured by the two microphones of this device.
Esta es una grabación de audio realizada con el Motorola Moto G54 5G, utilizando los dos micrófonos que integra.
It seems to me that the microphones are of good quality as well as the speakers. Then in this section of sound we have an unbeatable experience on this device. The front camera is 16 megapixels with f2.2 aperture and fixed focus, so it is a camera that we could say is simple although with good resolution. As in all Motorola devices, the quick launch function is integrated by turning the phone twice, and you can also rotate the camera by doing the same gesture, which can be very useful. It has two different levels of amplitude and the capture is not as fast as we would like it to be. If we hold down the shutter, if we have a burst, which is not the fastest thing in the world, but it can help. In addition, in the settings you can also enable the easy capture showing the palm of the hand, which is very useful when the shutter is very difficult to reach with one hand. In this interface we also find a button for different filters that we can preview in real time, and we also have a button to enable the beauty mode that has different parameters to improve your face. In fact, the camera also has two color settings. One that says automatic best and one with a natural setting. If you like your pictures saturated and vivid, you can select automatic best. But in all the tests I am going to show you below, I use the natural color setting. Although the camera is a 16 megapixel camera, I must say that the level of detail does not correspond to that resolution. The camera has fixed focus and 2 levels of range, but it offers a good enough range even for group shots, but I don't think it's a very outstanding picture. Indoors, it is confirmed that the device does not have an excellent light input, as it suffers a lot to detail the picture, and even in the darkest areas appears very grainy. So I do not think it is the most remarkable camera, but I think that at the price we will find very similar results in backlight conditions. The preview still looks bad, but after taking the picture it balances better better light and shadows, although we still see areas a little overexposed and especially little accuracy in colors. In the evenings, the result will be positive as long as you have a light source nearby. Even if the light source is not directly touching your face, I think the result is good, although it starts to appear a bit more grainy, especially in the darker areas. And at night in backlighting, it can definitely suffer more than we would like, but in this price range, it is a normal result. It's also able to light up its screen to better illuminate your face, although I still don't like the result very much. But look how nice the portraits look at night. I think that's one of its plus points. Although in the day you will notice that it is not able to focus well on objects, so ideally you should not go out with an object to the side so that the result is natural with respect to the detection of the edges on the face of a person. I think it has something positive blurring the background well. On the back, we have the main camera of approximately a few millimeters with 50 megapixels in its sensor aperture f1.8 autofocus and optical stabilization. Something that surprises in this price range the second camera in Mexico and in many parts of the world is a macro camera of 2 megapixels with aperture f2.2 and fixed focus. Although it is curious that in India is sold the second ultra-wide camera of 8 megapixels with autofocus. That model would definitely be excellent to be distributed globally, but for the moment, Motorola has decided to reserve it only for India. As usual in testing, I will try to capture number 1 to see how the shutter speed is on this device, and as you can see, it does have a good shutter speed to capture the exact moment, although the animation of the capture does not show up as fast. In fact, on my second attempt, it caught it slightly earlier than I expected, so the capture is very agile. As you can notice, if we hold down the shutter, it also has available a burst, although it is a little slow compared to what other devices offer us, but although it is not the fastest burst we have seen, somehow it would allow us to capture the exact moment. If we click on the screen, we can adjust the focus and exposure, but if we want more adjustments, we can enter the Pro mode. The remarkable thing here is that it allows us to take pictures in RAW and even in RAW and JPG at the same time. In addition to offering manual settings such as focus white balance, shutter speed up to 32 seconds, made up to 3200 and exposure compensation, even shows us a histogram in the upper right corner. So the manual photography experience is very good, and that is something rare to see in devices of this price without doubt. It is not possible to scan a document directly from the automatic mode, but fortunately if you have a special mode called scanner through which you can perform this action for the device automatically detect the edges of a sheet. In addition, in the share menu you could send this document to print in PDF so that you not only have it as an image but also as a file. On the other hand, QR codes are able to be detected directly from the main camera interface without having to open another application or switch modes. Moving pictures will not come out well defined on this device, so you could have very blurry results in this type of action scenarios if it has a 50 megapixel mode with which you can try to take advantage of more resolution on the sensor. But honestly, even though the photo, if it is 50 megapixels, you do not really appreciate that level of detail when you try to zoom or crop the photo. So you better consider that the camera is 12 megapixels and not 50. In automatic mode, I find that the photo comes out with even better detail than the 50 megapixel mode, and outdoors we have a good representation of colors within the range. Also, something that is very remarkable is that we do not find severe distortions or even significant chromatic aberration on the edges or sides of this lens, and considering its price, I think it gives us a very clean picture even indoors with much less lighting. The result will be positive with respect to color saturation and detail capture. Although obviously all adapted to its price, because if there will be devices capable of better detail, these photographs even in the darkest areas but surely will be more expensive. I think this device if you take good pictures in low light conditions. And at night with the automatic mode we have good detail, good color, and in general I think the picture is good. But if you use the night mode, the details will be enhanced to give a better picture. Although in the darker areas in this type of scenario where there is a bit of backlighting, they may not be compensated as much as we would like. But look at this picture in auto mode without night mode in a much darker area, and it is definitely a bad picture. But look at the result with the night vision mode. Enabled, the truth is that it is surprising the improvement. Although obviously if you zoom in to try to notice more details, you will notice that it is a simple photograph, but without zooming you will see a much better picture, so it is highly recommended to use the night vision mode. Regarding the zoom, we do not have something so advanced because it only integrates digital zoom without integrating any crop inside the sensor or something similar. So the maximum is 10x, which looks good. Honestly, does not look so exaggerated, so in the price range I think we can accept this type of zoom. Macro photography seems to me to be very positive since the main lens is able to focus on these tiny objects. On the other hand, the macro camera is not that it is bad, but it is definitely inferior to the result that can show us the main camera. So I feel that the macro camera is completely useless. Portrait photographs will also be simple as it is not able to detect depth very well, and if you have an object will blur it, but the detection in the face, I think it is good. It doesn't feel cloudy edges or anything like that, so for portraits, avoid objects nearby so that the photo comes out with a better effect, and night portraits will make the bokeh effect stand out even more if you have some background lights, but I insist that it is not so advisable to use some objects for these photos because it will not be able to focus them correctly. I forgot to tell you about the backlit photo, that in the preview it doesn't look very good, and after processing I think it can improve some areas, for example the sky, but in this case it generates much more chromatic aberration due to the natural movement that the leaves could have, and in some areas you still see a slightly overexposed content, so I don't think it has a good performance in backlit photos. The main camera can record in full HD up to 60 frames per second as maximum quality. On the other hand, the front camera will only reach in full HD at 30 frames per second without having available the 60 setting. When making a video recording, you can pause and resume this clip, take some captures, and you can even turn on the flashlight without the need to stop your video recording. However, to rotate to the front camera, if you need to stop the recording before you can do this action, it also allows you to turn off the microphone in your recording, but it does not have a pro mode for video recording as it does for photography. Video recording is simple, although immediately we notice that if you have stabilization also supported by optical stabilization, then I think that helps a lot to a more stable video. But if we will notice that the colors could be saturated more in some scenarios and suddenly could change that intensity so the white balance does not seem so accurate, colors could get to look very different from reality, and the focus, you will notice that it is not one of its highlights. There are times where you can get to reach. I think it is definitely not an expert in video recording, although it can be defended, but I would like a better color management indoors. We will notice that it can generate more noise due to the little presence of light that may have some areas, but fortunately it maintains good color saturation. And again, it is very grateful that it has stabilization. At night we will also have some areas with noise present, and if you go to some areas where there are sources of illumination at night is likely to come out totally overexposed. Finally, the darker areas will not come out very well lit, unlike photography. But I think that within what fits manages noise. Well, so it is not a disastrous result, and in this price range I think if you record good content at night, the zoom, if it can be directed smoothly, and it seems to me that if it is optimized little by little, that is not simply looks like a stretched image, but yes, it is to take advantage of the best you can also. Again, the fact of integrating stabilization allows the zoom experience is also positive, by the way. The maximum zoom that allows us this device is 6x, although due to the stabilization makes a cut that gives the feeling that it was even closer. And speaking specifically of the stabilization, remember that the device allows you to turn off this stabilization in case you want to take advantage of more information from the sensor. But obviously with the stabilization of the result will not be good neither walking nor much less running. But now look at the result we have with the stabilization on. Definitely when walking the movements are disguised much better. And when running, obviously if it comes to suffer because it is not a stabilization so advanced, but in the price range is appreciated that if stabilization integrates, in backlight scenarios, the device does not give a good result, especially because the focus is very confused and focuses on the most illuminated areas, so the foreground could even go out of focus, and also most of the illuminated areas in any way comes out overexposed even if it is not detecting a face. So honestly, the backlight recording seems very bad to me. It would be advisable to record with light from the front and not backlight. The slow motion is basic HD at about 20 frames per second, so it is not as spectacular as other devices, and the fast motion is not spectacular either. It can go from 4x, which can be useful for recording people, but the fastest it can go is just 32x, and that can be very short when you want to record landscapes or something more spectacular. The advantage is that if it is a fast camera with stabilization, something that not all devices offer. The front camera also integrates stabilization, although having this enabled, obviously the framing is much closer, so you need to stretch your arm a lot. If you want to leave well-framed colors, do not look so accurate, and obviously has fixed focus, so even if you approach an object will not adjust its focus, but that happens in all devices of the price. What is really appreciated is that it does have stabilization, although obviously the video recording will have very simple colors, will not perform well in backlit scenarios, and in general it is a recording that cannot get to stand out, but it is appreciated that if we give us full HD quality and stabilization at the same time, with the stabilization disabled, you could have a little more panorama in case you want to take more advantage of the space or you don't like to stretch your arm too much, but obviously when you are walking you will notice the movements much more. Indoors, the performance will be very similar to what we saw with the rear camera, i.e., much more noise will appear and the definition will be lost, but the colors and their saturation will be well maintained. And at night we will have a good result as long as we have a good artificial lighting touching in front of our face, but it is likely that at night the colors may come to suffer a little more. In addition to that, will appear much more grainy inside the screen, but in this price range I think the recording, yes, we could consider that it is of good quality. The front camera does not have slow motion, but it does have a fast camera with the same parameters that I mentioned in the rear camera, i.e., it does offer stabilization, and it does offer full HD resolution, so the front fast camera is very good, and as compliments it also offers good dual recording modes. What is remarkable is that it preserves the full HD resolution, so you can record using the rear camera and the front camera at the same time and exchange the view without the need to stop the video. In fact, it also enabled zoom and focus, two aspects that some other manufacturers disable in this mode. In fact, you can also move the frame to the place you want, and also has a split screen mode in 2 with the same features that I mentioned previously. What would be appreciated even more would be to retain the stabilization, but I think that would be too much to ask for a device of this price. The simple fact of already integrating these features make it a good option. This device comes with Android 13 and running on it the Motorola layer called MyUX, which is a very simple layer, so it does not add or modify too much of the system. Motorola promises 1 year of software updates for this device and 3 years of security patches, so its lifetime is not very long, but I think in the price range is the best you could get to find, as the vast majority of manufacturers at this price will not offer practically nothing. Motorola's main additions to the system will be within the application called Moto, and one of the most attractive features of all Motorola have always been the gestures, and in this case will be no exception, now adding a gesture to double tap the back of the device and launch a specific application. In this case, you can select which application you want to open when making this gesture, and works quite well. In addition to the quick camera opening gesture that I had already shown you, we have the possibility to double shake the device to turn on the flashlight, and you can also take screenshots with 3 fingers, in addition to turn the phone upside down to activate the Do Not Disturb mode and similar gestures. It also has a smart sidebar through which you have shortcuts to some applications that will work in a floating window mode for the most part, and even consider that applications like YouTube or Instagram that are generally not supported in this case are supported, and you can customize specifically what shortcuts you want to have immediately there. Then I consider that the experience is completely good, although it would be perfect if it would allow us to open more than one application in this floating mode, and also does not allow us to put the window in a very small size because otherwise it will immediately minimize. Then my ideal is that it allows us to open multiple applications in this format, but here you can only one. Motorola also has a feature called Attentive Display, so that while you are looking at the screen it doesn't turn off, but they have removed the quick glance option they previously had on notifications, so now it will just pop up the clock with the same lock screen, but now you can't interact with notifications unless the screen is turned on completely. In summary, like all Motorola, is a very simple system, very stable and very fluid, where you will not find too many errors, but still feels with few options compared to what some other manufacturers offer us. The integrated side fingerprint reader allows up to 5 records and is a capacitive reader that works very well. Just put and remove your finger for unlocking is done quickly. You can also select the option to make it necessary to press the button in case you consider it good, and remember that it also has facial unlocking, although it is not as secure as fingerprint unlocking, so it would only be recommended to use it if you want to give more priority to a comfortable unlocking. But for convenience, I would recommend you to activate Google Smart Lock to set up some trusted environments and that in those environments the device is not being blocked. The password manager and autocomplete is completely from Google and automatically fills in the fields without first verifying your fingerprint. As always, let me guide you to enable the specific option to ask for your fingerprint before automatically filling in those fields. Without a doubt, this option should come on from the factory, as we could find some vulnerability in case the passwords are automatically filled in, but you can enable the fingerprint verification. The good news is that this device incorporates the latest Motorola software that now also integrates a secure folder. This is something new in this manufacturer's devices, and in this folder you will be able to integrate both applications and files. All this obviously protected with your fingerprint or with a pattern that can be different from the lock screen, so you gain more privacy. And within the Moto Secure application, we also find a tool to prevent phishing, so the phone is able to alert you when someone is trying to trick you, so you give them your passwords and your accounts. In addition, Motorola has highlighted that this device incorporates its ThinkShield technologies that are for enterprise-level protection and hardware level, so it is a device that really, if we can, give us a lot of confidence. And for a safe family environment, it has the family space function in it. You can create different profiles for your children, you can assign different names, and you can also select which applications can enter. Even you can customize your screen a little, and you yourself can determine if you will request a password to exit this space, and if you have limited time, then in this screen you can have different profiles of your children and start the profile of a certain child. The only detail is that the first time you start it, you must give the necessary permissions, and this can become a little more complicated for people who do not have enough knowledge. From my point of view, these permissions should already come on by default being system applications. But once you have turned on all permissions, look what happens at the time of entering a family space. Appears a dialog where you can select what is the time limit you want to have this session of your little one, and immediately the child will have a countdown and will only be able to access applications or games that you have authorized to get out of there. Obviously must verify fingerprint. The battery is 5000 milliamps, although in my case, based on the tests that I do to all devices, I could tell you that it did not perform as expected. In total, I could tell you that it will give you about 40 minutes less than what they give on average other devices with similar battery. So I was not very surprised. I think it is possibly a device in which you will use very often the battery saving mode to extend more life. And we must consider that it does not have an extreme saving mode for an emergency case, unlike other devices that do integrate it. The device supports 15 watts charging, although in the box, a 20 watts charger is included. Although in this case again we will find differences with respect to the Indian version, where the battery is 6000 milliamps and the charger of 30 watts, I think that version will have a much better autonomy and better charging speed, because in this case with 15 minutes I recovered just 11% of the energy, with 30 minutes 27%, and the full charge finished in almost 2 hours. So it is not a fast charge, and I think this could be one of its weak points in conjunction with the battery that did not perform as expected. The good thing is that the device integrates optimized charging, so in case you leave it charging all night, the device will learn your charging pattern and will charge a little slow until you wake up to finish its charge at 100%. That can help extend the battery life for more years. It also integrates overcharge protection, but it is only after 3 days, so I don't really consider it that useful, unlike other devices that bring a charge lock until 85% or similar things, confirming again that the battery point I think is the weakest of this device. In connectivity, we find positive things because this device supports 5G networks, so we will have good download speeds, although it does not have any special way to restrict internet access through mobile data to certain applications. Only has a general data saving mode that prevents applications from consuming data in the background, but there are devices with much more advanced management. Supports Wi-Fi 5 network, so it will not have such extraordinary download speeds, but honestly, among the devices I have tested with this support, it is one of the best downloading devices. Although obviously this may vary depending on your internet connection and different times, but I think it will give you a good connection. Also has Bluetooth 5.3 for a stable connection, and this comes to highlight because in the range usually find Bluetooth 5.2 or lower. Also has NFC to make mobile payments or to link you to other devices simply by approaching the back of this cell phone. Also has wireless screen projection, but you should know that it only supports Chromecast. So in this sense, the experience is limited compared to other devices that let you project wirelessly to more monitors or screens. As all current Android integrates Android Auto to connect to the screen of your vehicle and also integrates virtually all the sensors that we could ask, including gyroscope, geomagnetic field sensor, light sensor, a physical proximity sensor, and even we will also have gravity sensors, linear acceleration, rotation vector, and some others. The experience here is very good. The optical response is simple since it integrates vibration motor in the zeta axis, but it is what you find in practically all devices in this price range, and I forgot to tell you that it also has FM radio, although to use it you need to have headphones connected to work as an antenna. Motorola's ecosystem falls too short compared to the brand strength it currently has because the brand is very famous but does not really have accessories that work well with each other. That is, if you have a Motobots but really are normal headphones that will not have a special interaction in conjunction with the Motorola cell phone. Similarly, currently do not have a smartwatch or tablet or anything like that, and despite being part of the Lenovo family, do not have a special interaction with computers or tablets of the brand. So it feels like an ecosystem too short and practically without any member, but the advantage is that they have Android and therefore can coexist well with other devices of this same operating system or devices that integrate technologies such as Google Fast Pay. But being Motorola such a recognized brand, we could get more demanding in the sense that we offer their own cloud storage because in this case depend on Google Drive, and with respect to home devices depends entirely on Google Home and integrates control directly into the quick settings panel to display your list of devices. Let's go to the performance test you are seeing in fast motion. This device has the Dimensity 7020 processor, a considerably new processor, so it is going to offer us a good experience, which we will confirm in a moment when we finish opening these applications. It is also accompanied by 8 GB of RAM, which in conjunction with a fairly clean system I think will give us a good experience, but in a moment more we will confirm it. It took approximately 3.6 seconds to open each application, and I think in the price range is a considerably good time. I must say that at times, especially when we are demanding with maximum speed movement or agility between multiple applications, yes, you can get to feel a little clumsy, so it is not the most powerful device today, but I think at the price you can get to defend well. Something positive is that it has 8 GB of RAM. And we are seeing that if they are perfectly well managed, because no application had restarted so far, with the exception of Amazon just did this, but I think that overall the device, if it maintains a good performance, even with this type of applications and browsing within applications also, the performance is considerably good. As you realize, you do not see very important locks, so I think the experience in the overall performance of this device will be good at the time to be using different applications. Another remarkable point will be the storage. In my case, I am using the version of 128 GB, but honestly, I would recommend you to acquire the version of 256 since it does not have so much difference in price and you double the storage. In my case, I have a good percentage used due to heavy games that I downloaded with all their data that we will try in a moment, but really the storage capacity is also a positive point. Besides that, you can put a micro SD. Now, as always, let's test how long it takes to export a clip of 1 minute in total duration. Joining 4 clips recorded with this device in full HD is already in about 28 seconds or so. Finished exporting this video, confirming that it is a very good quality processor that is likely to be above several of its competitors in the same segment. For the games, Motorola adds a special application where we have all the games that are installed, and here you can also visualize the gameplays that you have recorded with this device. Plus you can configure your experience in a specific game. For example, you can change the screen refresh rate or resolution to improve performance, and you can even prioritize the internet connection of this game, and you can enable a performance mode or a battery saving mode in addition to the standard mode. So it offers you good features to manage your games and the performance you will have inside them. And when you enter a game, notice that we also have the Moto Game Time tools. Through these tools, we can block calls and notifications so they are not disturbing us. You can also enable a block mode for some other gestures to avoid unwanted touches. You can also change the type of performance, and you can take screenshots or record screenshots. It also allows you to directly share the gameplays you have recorded and manage the Wi-Fi connection, as well as open directly in this section applications in a floating format, so you can answer your messages without the need to close your game. So I think it offers us good features also to complement the gaming experience. In Call of Duty by default, it has the medium graphic quality at a very high rate, but note that it is also available the high graphic quality even at a maximum rate, which is very remarkable in this price range. Honestly is impressive, although obviously it is not compatible with so many graphic effects, but in this price range no device will be, so it is very remarkable to have these capabilities. And I want to emphasize that this is very remarkable because it has a somewhat unknown GPU. Is a very new GPU called IMGBXM8256. The name of this GPU is very bad, but really its performance is very good. Surprising that at this price is able to maintain almost 60 frames per second at all times with high quality, and even recording the screen maintains excellent performance. Then if you want to play well and have good compliments as all Motorola device, I think a very good choice is this device. In the Legends game, we changed the auto setting to the medium graphic detail setting at 60 frames per second. For the price, it is likely that the fairest would have been a lower quality, but since it was giving us a good performance, we dared to select this. And the truth is that the experience again is too good. The stability does not look so high because in the first moments it went up to 119 frames per second even though we had set it at 60 frames per second, but the experience really is very good. Even when recording, the screen maintains a totally stable experience at 60 frames per second. There are only some moments of very punctual hitches where it surely loads new textures and similar things, but really the experience was very good, and consider that the temperature did not rise too high. In the SpongeBob game by default, this device gives us low resolution with low quality at 30 frames per second. For the test, we raised the resolution and quality to medium and raised it to 60 frames per second. And again, the performance was quite good. I think in this price range, it has been one of the best devices we have tested for gaming, and that is very surprising considering it is a MediaTek processor. It seems that these processors have significantly improved the gaming experience by adding good compatibility, good stability, and also keeping a considerably cool experience without much heating up. In Genshin Impact by default, the graphics are in low quality, and in this case we left that quality, but we went up to 60 frames per second for the test. And again, the experience I think is completely good in this case. Despite being a complex game, I think it maintained a good stability. Although obviously choosing adequate graphics to its price range definitely gives us a good gaming experience and is one of the best devices in this segment if your priority is to play, because even the heating is low, maintains good stability and good average frames per second. For the moment, we have reached the end of this video. If you liked it, you know you can indicate it, and we will see you next time.